Hi, I'm Larry Bird, and I'm the leadership liaison with the IFOC. Here today just to take a couple of minutes and share something that I hope will be a blessing to you and a help in your life. I was reminded in Scripture where the disciples were gathered together before Jesus was betrayed and crucified, and they were holding a meeting and discussing which of them was going to be the greatest when Jesus came into his Father's kingdom. Wasn't there, didn't hear the conversation. It's not documented exactly all that was said, but knowing the personalities of the disciples, I can almost tell you that the loudest voice in the crowd was that of Peter. He always had the loudest voice, and he always seemed to be the most prominent personality among the 12. On the heels of that, Jesus approaches Peter and says to him, "Simon, Simon, Satan has desired you. He has desired to have you, to sift you as wheat. But I have prayed, and when your faith is restored, then strengthen the brothers." And Peter was really taken back by that. It was like a rebuke from the Lord, and he responded back, "Well, Lord, I will go to prison with you. I will die for you." And Jesus, I can't imagine the look in his eyes when he looked into Peter's eyes and said, "Peter, let me tell you what you're going to do. Before the rooster crows, you're going to deny that you ever even knew me. Not once, not twice, but 3 times." And of course, we know the story that Peter was challenged while Jesus was being arrested and while he was being tried and ultimately sent to the cross. And on 3 different occasions, he was confronted. "I know you. You were one of them. You were one of those 12. You were one of Jesus's disciples." And all 3 times, Peter said, "No, I don't know this man. Never saw him before in my life." And the word says, when the rooster crowed, he realized that word that Jesus said to him had come to pass. It was true. All the words of God are true, aren't they? And the word says that he walked away bitterly weeping. He realized that his, quote, faith was not strong enough to withstand that particular test that he had gone through. As we fast forward and Jesus resurrects from the tomb and he meets Mary, he says to her, "Go tell my disciples and Peter." Remember that. He said, "And Peter, that I'm here, that I'm alive." And we then go into the book of John and we see where there comes again a meeting with Jesus and Peter. And what does he say to Peter? "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord. You know I love you." "Well, feed my lambs." "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." "Well, feed my sheep." And then a third time, I don't know what it looked like at that moment, but I just, in my heart, I see Jesus looking into the eyes of Peter, even into the very depths of his soul, and says, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." I really love this story because it says to me that we are to be a people of faith. In fact, we own our faith, don't we? We are men and women of great faith, and we've been taught and trained through the years to exercise our faith, to stand and to believe, and to never give in and never give up, and to never bow to the things that come at us when the enemy comes at us. But can I tell you, sometimes the enemy does come to us, and maybe you're different than I am, but there have been times where my faith just didn't seem to work. My faith was just not strong enough. And in those times when that would happen to me, I would feel like a complete failure. I was like Peter walking away, weeping bitterly. "Wow, God, I thought I had faith, and man, I don't have any." And interesting that in those times, Jesus comes, doesn't he? He comes to us and he begins to let us know, "Hey, you know what? I love you. I love you." And so I found that the greatest power in the world that we have as believers is not a revelation and an exercise of the great faith that we have, but it's more of the revelation, understanding, and the receptivity that love is so much greater than faith. Faith works by love, doesn't it? But our ability to walk in faith is no greater than the understanding that we have of the love of God, the love of the Father that comes to us through Christ. Love covers a multitude of sins. Love brings stability when nothing else does. Went through a difficult time in my life. I nearly lost my life, and I came through a very dark period of time. I got so close to heaven, I heard the sound of heaven. Didn't see the gates, but I heard the sound. I heard the music of heaven, and it was just amazingly awesome. Even though I was close to death, it was a very peaceful time. But once that passed and I realized I was not going to die, I was going to live, I was very grateful and very thankful. Only to find out in the months that followed, I realized that I had gone through a trauma and I was experiencing the symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I began to declare against it. I began to stand against it, pray against it, dig in my heels and exercise my faith, only to recognize that my faith was just not that strong enough to come through that on my own. And so I sought help. And I went to a fellow chaplain who also happened to be a mental health specialist. And so with the help of that chaplain and that who was the mental health specialist, we walked through the trauma, went through some interventions, and came out on the other side whole and well and free of the trauma. Can I tell you, we need one another. And the love of God that is shed abroad in all of our hearts need to come together when we are going through those difficult times. Don't beat yourself up because you think you've lost your faith or that you've not been able to exercise the faith you thought you had. Lean into the love of Jesus. Lean into the love that comes through the help of others, our fellow chaplains, and allow that love of God to displace that sense of failure in your heart. Be strong like a Peter. Receive the love of Jesus, and then move forward into a whole new level of life and joy and peace and faith operation in your life. Bless you.